I'm totally not taking this opportunity to look up what episode number it is because you reminded me I did not know what episode it is.
143, maybe?
143.
Yay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to this week's episode of the Season Live Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. It's episode 143, as Al said.
Yay.
I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Ladium.
Hello.
Feels like we just did one of these very recently.
It really does.
Kind of weird.
I mean,
But
we
also,
did do one very recently.
Yeah. Like all of last week was just like
Odd.
every day did not feel like the day it was supposed to be. So like all of like time and everything just fell off.
I just threw you completely off by being out of town / out of the country.
And then the airport was like, well, let's just make that even worse.
Yay!
But anyways, you are back.
I'm here.
And you played through a game over the weekend.
I did.
We did. I ended up reviewing this game.
You did.
So that's the reason you know about it.
Yeah, you were talking about it. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I played the demo. I'm like, this is interesting. And then I just played the game and
also reminiscent of another game we've talked about on this very show.
Yes.
But before we get into that, I feel like we're not going to dive into this at full length because we have done a complete episode on this. But Final Fantasy VIII Remaster came out.
Yes, it has.
And I feel like we have to talk about it for like a little bit. As you can tell, Al is very excited. So I am in the process of reviewing that. That should be probably done by the time this goes up. I don't know if it'll be posted by the time this goes up, but I had that a little bit before you, and you were like, I literally hate you.
Yep. That's a conversation.
I will come fight you.
It was a conversation that happened.
Yes. But given the nature of like how much you enjoy this game and all of that, I feel like it's proper that we at least discuss a little bit about this remaster. I think the biggest takeaway from it is that if you played the Final Fantasy VII one, the one they put out on PlayStation 4 a few years back and then eventually ported to Xbox and Switch, that is the baseline they are going with for Final Fantasy VIII Remaster. Which I think the 9 port they did was mostly based off of the mobile version they put out. And that's what they basically used because it has like all sorts of like weird game breaking things you can do in that. This has essentially kind of like the same interface that the 7 one had, where it has like the same buffs and everything, where like you have God mode, 3 XP to no encounters, and then like they're basically the same icons as well from the 7 remaster. As you've seen through trailers and everything, like they redid all the character models.
They did. They're so pretty now.
They are a little weird because they don't like faces don't animate. They're just very still. So like, I mean that's very true for like a PlayStation 1 game. So like I mean that works.
Yeah.
So like
they do
works.
blink.
They do blink. It's kind of that idea that like, you know, you've played a game a long time ago and you come back to it later and it's like, oh, this doesn't look like how I remember it. This is kind of like how I would feel if someone had played Final Fantasy VIII in 1999 and never saw another screenshot of it again until today. They would look at this and be like, yeah, that's how I remember this game looking.
Spoiler alert. It didn't look like that.
No. The weird thing is though, like there is like this uncanny valley, I think, aspect to those good looking models where this game also has the same problem that the 7 remaster had, where they redo the character models, but they do not touch the backgrounds in the slightest.
Yeah, they did that with 9 as well.
And it looks so weird. Like I don't understand. I mean, I kind of like I have theories of like why they don't touch up those backgrounds. Maybe it's because they don't have the assets for those anymore.
Most likely.
Or B, and this could be a combination of the two, like it's just too hard to really up-res those backgrounds without like breaking aspects of the game or just breaking how they would put this game back together for like a remaster or something like that. So it might just be one of those things where they really can't do it without it becoming like too like cost effective or just breaking the game entirely. But it's one of those things where you just look at it and you're like, I wish these backgrounds looked better. I wish like that aspect of the game also was remastered in the same way like they did these character models and everything, but it is what it is.
Yeah, my concern is that at that point it starts becoming like Final Fantasy VII remake levels that they're just gonna be like, well, what if we just change the story and add things in? It's like, what if we just got rid of the combat system? Also,
uh
for the record, episode 23 is when we talked about Final Fantasy VIII. If you want our whole,
that's a long time ago.
I know, I just looked it up. And another, I guess, comparison that we can make with the character models is literally a conversation we had, I guess, last night. I don't remember if it was last night or today. My day is kind of like melded into Final Fantasy VIII.
It's very
Um,
true.
there was a moment where I think it was last night, talking with you, and Zoo showed up on there. And I was like, oh, that's what she looks like. Because I never really knew what she looked like. She was just like a blob with hair.
Because if you didn't look at these characters outside of like character art, like on screen they just looked like a jumble of pixels. Because I think like obviously this is Square's kind of first take at doing a 3D JRPG and not having just like tiny character models on screen for most of the game like they did with 7, where like they had like the little more chibi looking ones and then like they would have the full characters for like battles. This is basically they have full characters for everything. So I think that kind of like hindered them a bit where all the characters kind of just look like a jumble of pixels and all that, but now you can actually see them. You can actually see what they look like. Squall is the best looking guy in the room finally.
He is the best looking guy in the room.
He still drinks out of his eye.
Yeah, that's also a thing that still happens. I'm unsure why he still drinks out of his eyeball, but you do you, Squall.
It's true. I think as well though, like we were kind of having this conversation last night, but we talked about this in the episode we did about FF8, but like FF8 is a very controversial game in terms of just like the catalog of Final Fantasy games. Like
it is.
It is a very love it or hate it type of game, and I think part of that is to do with like the way they basically revamped the battle system and introduced the draw system and all that sort of stuff. I feel like with the way that they brought in those boosts into FF8 Remaster with God Mode and ×3 speed, I think that's going to help people kind of understand drawing better, or at least give them like the patience to want to like actually commit to doing that, considering you can just put those on and just like not let your characters die and just draw to your heart's content. And I think as well, like 20 years later, like the internet is where it is, where if you need to find someone to tell you like, okay, why do I need to draw in this game? Like that information is readily available. Like I know obviously the game doesn't really do a great job of telling you like why this is a really important
mechanic
factor of the game. But I feel like nowadays, like if you go read a review of FF8 Remaster, it'll tell you like, yeah, drawing is very important. You should do it, and here is why, or at least like someplace on the internet will tell you that. But I think it's going to make things like a little bit easier for people to understand it and like kind of wrap their heads around it, unlike back in 1999 when it came out and people were just like, what the is this?
I mean, the reason that drawing is important is that like I am at the beginning of Disc 3 and I have Squall with just regular attacks doing like 8K.
You can very much just break the game.
Oh, I'm stupidly overpowered. Also, if you have a lot of money, in which case, like, get your seed rank up, get paid a lot. You can go to was it Shimu Village? I forget what they're called. And there's this draw point outside, and they're like, there's no take backsies, but it's $5,000 for a draw. I'm like, yes, you should do this. You should always do this. Because that draw point has Ultima and it keeps reloading and you keep having to pay for it, but like that is a good place to get like the best magic in the game.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can get it as soon as you have the garden floating.
Ooh.
Yay! Well, and if you have that much money to spend.
Yeah.
Anyway, Draw, it is your friend.
It is your friend. So yeah, FF8 remaster seems good. There are, like I said, it's gonna look weird in places because of just updated character models and not updated backgrounds and other aspects of the game not looking up to snuff. But I think that's kind of what people expected from this anyway. So that's like not super surprising. But yeah. Apparently, I think the Steam version is the one that has like a bunch of the weird stuff that where you just super break the game, like the when I originally played it on PC. But I think that's just because it's based off of that PC version, the Steam version at least. I don't know what the console versions and everything else is. I haven't seen anything around that says one way or the other what version of the game is based off of. But yeah, FFA Remaster. FFA's out everywhere. You can play all of the PlayStation Final Fantasy games now in a convenient place.
Yay!
Which is pretty cool.
It is really cool, and it has been a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VIII needs more love, guys. I am only one person, and I do know that like my love is loud and obnoxious for everybody and so full for Final Fantasy VIII, but I am just one person. I need support to love.
Especially because, like, if you would have asked at the beginning of this year whether Final Fantasy VIII would be coming out to modern consoles, people would look at you and be like, probably not.
Yeah.
That source code's been lost. No one knows where it is. It's probably never coming out. And now it is.
Yay!
It's
and
pretty cool.
I've basically done nothing but play that and sleep for a few hours.
Yeah.
And go to a doctor's appointment.
To the surprise of no one.
Nobody's shocked.
0 people. You were literally counting down the minutes last night,
waiting
for it to unlock.
I was. We were playing JoJo, and I was like, "Oh my god, it needs to unlock already!" It was great.
So that's a brief bit of Final Fantasy VIII Remaster. It seems cool.
Ask me about Final Fantasy VIII, guys. I will tell you all about Final Fantasy VIII.
That's not a lie.
It is not a lie.
She'll be like, "Oh yeah, this part. Yeah, I know what this means." Oh, this section that sounds like it has like weird baby making music. Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know where to go in the soundtrack for that.
Oh, you want the actual good date? Oh, you need to use these instruments. I got you.
Oh man. I feel like I don't. Have you played a lot of Final Fantasy VIII? Can't tell.
You know, not sure.
So yeah, there is that. There's Final Fantasy VIII Remaster. Anyways,
but that's not what we're actually going to talk about today.
We're talking about another game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, we came to the conclusion today that Ultimecia or Ultimecia, whichever you want to say, is a shifter. Mm-hmm. So this Final Fantasy VIII is in the Zero Escape universe.
Yep.
Final Fantasy VIII is the prequel to 999. It is the genesis of shifting.
Oh my god.
Someone needs to ask Uchikoshi if Final Fantasy VIII is the Zero Escape game.
I'd be willing to ask him.
Ultimecia has the ability to shift, it seems like, in Final Fantasy VIII. Does this mean it's a Zero Escape game? Anyways, yeah.
I mean, technically, like, Elan is also capable of shifting. Or she shifts other people.
Yeah. She's like a prototype shifter.
Yeah. Anyway.
Let's talk about the game we're going to talk about fully here today.
Yee.
Not games we have talked about in the past on other episodes.
Well, we're actually going to talk a little bit about a game we've talked about.
That is true.
And I pulled up what episode number that is too.
Good. So we recently played through a game called World End Syndrome. It is a visual novel. You can find it on the PlayStation 4 and the Switch. It came out back in May,
Mm-hmm.
but we are just now playing it now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is, I guess, one of the sticking points for it is that character designs were done by Yuki Kato, who is known for their work on the Blaze Blue series.
Yep.
And the director and writer of the game is Tomio Kanazawa, who also directed and wrote a little game called Seven Scarlet.
That we talked about on episode 78 because I played it, and it
Mhm.
is an Otome.
It was a part of your Otome summer.
It was. And it's what, number 2 on my list of best Otome?
Yes, the number 2 best Otome game out there
Wow.
that you can buy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to mean that we're going to be coming to this game with different experiences, let's say. Me, because I didn't play Seven Scarlet. I know you told me about it, but like, I don't remember it. The things I remember from that game are long hands. That's basically it. And cat dude.
Big hands, and she's obsessed with the big hands. And
Yes.
yeah, the dude with his kitties that he keeps falling and dropping the cat treats out of his pocket.
If you told me to explain the story of Seven Scarlet, I would not be able to do that. So I didn't remember that, and then obviously played through this, and I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. And then you have obviously played through Seven Scarlet, and coming into this game, you were like playing the demo, you're like, oh yeah, this is similar. This is similar. This is similar. This is similar. And then also you showed me that the opening theme to Seven Scarlet is a song called World's End Syndrome.
Yep.
Which is like, wow. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Basically,
All right.
the difference is you date women or
Yeah. Seven Scarlet's an Otome. This is a more, I guess, I guess they just call them dating sims. Like, there's no
They
other
usually just
generic
call them dating sims.
term for when you're going after ladies instead of dudes. So, but
yeah.
that is the difference here.
Well, and Seven Scarlet had adults.
Yes, these are got some high schoolers here.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said, this is a visual novel. There's no real like other gameplay hook to this. Like, you know, with other visual novels, there sometimes are. This is, you know, they threw in a dating sim into this. That's the gameplay hook. But
the one element of gameplay really is just like picking things on a map.
Yeah, which that's real. I don't know if that would really count as gameplay. It's just
it doesn't, but
yeah,
it's the closest you're gonna get.
So they basically split the game up into kind of sections. There is a prologue, which kind of gives you an introduction to the story and everything, gives you an introduction to what you're doing in this town, all of the characters you get introduced to, and like the differences between them and all that sort of stuff, and sets up the big mysteries that are going to be prevalent throughout the rest of the game. And then once you get past that, that's when basically the game opens up and you're able to kind of go around to different parts of the town, and that's where you kind of start trying to figure out how you're going to go on your specific routes you need to go to eventually find yourself in the true ending.
Which I will say that, like, I used a guide that you sent me. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how anybody would figure out how to get through this game without a guide.
Just major save scumming.
That's the only thing I can figure is that, like, you would have to just save scum and check every single place, and that would be so obnoxious.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I did it the first time through, just kind of picking and choosing places to go, so like I was able to kind of skip things later on. But the only thing that really seemed like good for was like doing some quests. There's some of the quests here and there. But other than that, I was not on any route whatsoever, so I just got like I didn't even make it to like the festival and just batted me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was weird. But I think this game does have some interesting things going on with it when you get into like when it opens up. Like there's some quests you can do. Like it'll like kind of pop up here and there. Like
little
yeah. Where it'll be like, okay, well you need to do this by this set of date or do this thing, whatever, and you'll get like little rewards for it. There's a bunch of collectibles you can find as well that are kind of like tokens or stuff that you can find around town that like gives you a little bit of more lore, which is neat that they add kind of something to that to make it not just straight where you have to go find routes and everything. You know, there's a little more things you can kind of go out and find if you're so inclined and going like outside the realms of just the regular dating routes and all that. Whole bunch of tips and all that, because that's what these games are. Got to have a bunch of those. But yeah. So we'll talk about the prologue a bit. There is a demo out if you want to pick it up. I know it's on Switch. I don't know if it's on PS4 or not, but
Which, for the record, if you play through the demo,
yes, this is a good
it
point.
does not save your save file. You cannot carry that over.
Right.
You have to replay everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying.
But yeah. But essentially, since we will be going through story, we will basically be spoiling things, so just bear that in mind. If you want to like tap out once we get through like the prologue stuff, if you're like interested, that would probably be a good time to check out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll mostly. I mean, it's a visual novel, so like we can't avoid talking about spoilers in the slightest.
Which I will say, I was very, very shocked how long the demo lasted. Like, I kept expecting it to cut me off, and like it goes all the way through the prologue, which is like several hours of gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
It was impressive.
But the prologue begins basically, or I guess the game itself begins. You're riding a train and you are on your way to Mihate Town,
Mm-hmm.
which is this nice little town on the coast. It's a very small town, and it is famous for a legend that is there. We'll get to that in a little bit, but you're riding this train. You meet this girl named Yukino. She's a writer, and she wakes you up, and you're like in a daze the entire time, because you just woke up. She keeps you company on the train ride to Mihate, and then eventually you get off and find yourself in the town. You have to find like this big. They call it a mansion. It's just a big house.
It's a big house.
It's not even. It's not a mansion.
It has like 3 rooms, like 3 bedrooms, and 1 bathroom. Like, it's not a mansion. It does have a sweet porch, though.
It does. So this house is owned by your uncle. He's letting you stay there as you go to school, as you transfer schools over in Mihate, and you basically head off to that. And the first night you spend there, you basically kind of like you see the lay of the land, or the house basically, and then you like sit out on the porch at night and you listen to this weird spooky radio show, not store.
Which they do say it's like ASMR, so that's the second time we've talked about that in like what, 2 weeks?
I think so.
Nice. I had no idea what it was until like a week ago.
So the radio what do I keep saying store? Radio show kind of goes off of like the big legend that is surrounding the town, and the legend of the town is that of the Yomibito, which are basically essentially kind of like zombies. They are people who have come back to life. Those people basically, they don't remember when they died. All that memory is gone, and basically
they will eventually go on a killing rampage.
As time goes on, if they are left unchecked, they will go into a killing rampage, and that supposedly happens every 100 years, and it happens specifically in Mihate, and they are now coming up on the 100th year to where this could happen again.
For the record, the only thing that's different from Seven Scarlet on this is the 100-year thing. Everything else is the exact same. Literally everything else is the exact same. They changed the town name and they added the 100 years. Otherwise, it's the exact same thing.
So yeah, there's going to be a lot of similarities to Seven Scarlet. If you've played that game, you're going to see a lot of those throughout the rest of the game. But if you haven't, like, this is going to be seen new and fresh, so it's a little bit different perspective wise. Eventually you have to go to bed because you're sleepy and you travel all day. You wake up in the middle of the night and there's a girl in your bed for whatever reason.
I thought
You're like,
you meant me, and I was like, oh, I am sleepy always.
That too. You wake up and you're like, oh, what is this? Oh no. What is going on? And like the protagonist just like sits up in bed and just like sits there the entire time, like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna sleep like this.
It was so funny because he was just like, I'm gonna just deal with this later and just sit right here. Everything's fine. I'll deal with it in the morning. I'm like, dude, really?
Eventually you wake up the next day and you find out that like this other girl is living in this house. She is your kind of sort of cousin, maybe, who knows. She's also living there because she was sent there as well. She was not told you were coming, and neither were you told that she was there. So you're just like, well, I guess we're just gonna deal with this. I don't know. Shrug shoulders.
Accidental roommates.
Accidental roommates. She tells you not to tell anyone that you're living together, but then like people find out like the very first day. So
Because she says it to somebody,
yes.
and she says it to the one person that you wouldn't tell.
Oh boy.
Who is annoying best friend.
He's something, all right.
God, he sucks. He really sucks. The whole time I'm just like, oh God, why are you here?
So eventually you go to school the next day and you get introduced to your class and everything. You have your homeroom teacher who is Kaori Yamashiro. She's famous in the town because she wrote a book on the Yomobito legend and it blew up, and now it's getting made into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's also forming a club that's on a trial basis where it's not an official club, but she's basically testing it out for next year. It is unofficially titled the Mystery Club, but I think it's like the official title is like the Tribal Research Club.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Also in your class is a girl named Miyu. She's very like does not talk a lot and seems very shady.
Uh-huh. Also,
Um,
she gave you like a weird eyeball thing when she first sees you.
yes. Uh, you also meet, as you called him, annoying best friend, who is Kensuke. He is that character in a visual novel. He is the
Mhm.
weird, pervy, very loud, obnoxious character.
Like, God, I hate him.
You also eventually meet Saya. She's the rich girl. That's her character. She's the rich girl.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, you meet a bunch of characters. You eventually get roped into joining the mystery club because of things. Kensuke just wants to join and he basically just drags you there. And they're like, "Why are you here?" And they're like, "And then eventually you join up and all this stuff. They eventually recruit another member who goes by the name of Hanako Yamada, who is totally not an idol or anything.
No, not at all. Why would you ever think that?
She is totally not the idol Rei Nikaido.
Mm-mm.
Definitely not.
Nope.
No siree.
Mm-mm.
Rei is there. She is in town because she's going to be filming, or she's going to be the lead actress in the movie about Kaori's book. So that's why she's there. Eventually, Yukino also shows up and starts living with you, and then joins the mystery club as well, even though she is not a high schooler in the slightest.
Nope.
You also meet other characters like Ryoko, who's a cop, who also just plays Blaze Blue, which they literally name drop in this game.
Yep, they do.
So that is a thing. Mibu, who is Saya's older brother, he does a lot of stuff with their family's business and everything. Yamato is Miyu's older brother. He runs a cafe where you go to a lot and eat and drink coffee. Or iced tea as the protagonist drinks, but never gets it.
He never gets it.
Never gets it.
Poor boy.
But yeah, those are basically your big main characters you're going to see throughout this. The prologue basically kind of just like continues on throughout like the first 2 months that you're there, where you're just kind of going through the motions at first, and getting to know basically all the characters at once, finding out what's happening throughout the town and all that sort of stuff. Eventually, there is a girl that goes missing, who goes to your school as well. She eventually
She was supposed to join the club.
She was being recruited for the club, but then she goes missing, and then she eventually is found dead because you find her bag floating down the river as you're on like a cookout with the club, and then her body's discovered like a little bit later on after that, which is the second person who's gone missing in the
There was
town.
one that was like in the school in the like next area.
Yeah, like a neighboring school who also went missing in the same areas, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little cause for worry, and also just because like people know about the Yomibito legend, and they're like, oh, the Yomibitos are gonna come back, and all that sort of stuff. Also, you learn about the protagonist's past, where He talks about his sister who died, and that's kind of like why he's here.
Yes.
He wanted to basically get away from everything. Um,
He tells maybe cousin, he's like, I killed her with my own hands.
mm-hmm. So all that happens, and then basically things continue on, and then you eventually get to a point where Kaori asks you if she should invite new members to the club. And the first time you go through the prologue, you have one choice, and you answer, yeah, why not? Sure, let's do that. If you do that, though, it basically time warps you, and you get a bad ending where
A very bad ending.
Mayumi and Yukino are like killed in your room, or not in your room, but in your house. You're like just running around, wondering what's happening. You see Miyu's eye like through the peephole of the lock in your door.
Then you get shanked.
And then you get shanked. It's very confusing. You don't understand what's happening at this point.
Nope. I had no idea what was going on.
So you have to go through the prologue again, but you can skip through it and all that sort of stuff. And then by the time you get to the end again, you'll get a new choice, which basically is like, no, you shouldn't have anyone else come and join the club. Once you do that, though, that's when the game opens up properly, to where you have full reign of going places and all that stuff. And that's where you are able to go into your routes and all that sort of stuff. So, do we have a preference on what? Should we just go in order of how you did it through the guide?
Yeah, I think so, because some of them are locked behind that like
right.
you have to do some of the earlier ones in order for it to actually work.
Right. But the first three, I think you can kind of interchange a little bit. Maybe the first two, at least specifically. I don't know how like the third one might not be as interchangeable, but
the first two at least.
Yeah. So one of the first people you can go for is Saya, and you learn about her story about like how her family has come up and everything, how all that, and how they've come to prominence in the town itself, and how like they are supposedly the ones who got rid of the Yomibito 100 years ago, and they celebrate this and all that sort of stuff. Through this, you also learned that Miyu's family was also like another big prominent family 100 years ago, and they supposedly were sheltering the Yomibito, and that's how they kind of fell out of power. But that's kind of like, it's not really talked about like nowadays, but it is a keynote to remember going forward. But yeah, like the routes are weird in the way, like if you're going for them, like if you're following a guide and everything, just trying to get them for sure. It's a lot of like going around to a place where they will be.
It's so creepy.
Yeah, it's like, I understand why it's a dating sim kind of trope where you would do this just to like get your affinity up with this person and all that sort of stuff. But if you look at the logistics of it through like a realism spectrum, it's very creepy and stalkerish, and you're just like, this feels real gross.
Yeah, it was very upsetting.
So you go through her route, and basically she has some issues where she has to learn about like her real parents and all that sort of stuff, and it's very bad for her. Kind of calls into question like how she feels about her actual family and everything, all that sort of stuff.
There's also like they bring up that, what's it, weird brother dude.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. He has issues like public speaking. They bring that up, which same, but like they bring that up, and they're like, oh yeah, he's got to get used to it because he's gonna take over the company and blah 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, I'm good at it, but he has to start doing it, and it's a thing that they make sure they point out.
Yeah, and also they kind of like bring up the fact that like she is kind of the better at that sort of stuff than he is, and it's kind of calling into question like, well, are they really going to go with him to lead the company later on, or are they just going to like put everything on her instead? So yeah, eventually like her supposed real dad shows up, and basically tells her that he is her real dad, and like that puts her into like a real funk and everything. Um, to where like you eventually meet like her actual, like not her actual dad, but like the dad that she's known and all throughout her life and everything. And he has to give her like this rousing speech of like, you're the one, you're my daughter and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, eventually he goes through the route, and then you end up getting to date her and all that sort of stuff. But then things go weird at the end.
Yes. Also, it's odd because she's like much younger than everybody else.
Yeah.
She's like 15.
Mm-hmm.
And she like straddles you at one point. It's like, I'm going to show you that I'm a woman. I'm like, ooh. Homegirl, calm down.
So eventually, like all the routes kind of converge at the festival that happens. You will eventually like meet the person you are pursuing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Things will happen, and you will eventually leave the festival, and then things go just bad.
Yeah. There's a person in a panda mask in many of these
Mm-hmm.
routes.
There is a person in the panda mask because the panda mask is relevant to Ray's idol group that she's in. But this person in the panda mask is basically someone who is doing bad things. They show up in front of you and basically have a knife, and they're like, I'm gonna shank you. I can't remember if it's this route or the other route where when this happens in the route, you will see hooded people show up.
No, it's a different one.
I thought it was this route, but maybe it's because the first two routes they have like kind of similar endings, but
Yeah, it wasn't this one because I remember I texted you. It was like, I just got shanked by a panda.
well, I mean, you kind of do in the first two routes specifically. So
Yeah, but like I would have like mentioned the hoods in the first route if I had had them. It would have stuck out to me.
but yeah, you get shanked,
You do get shanked.
and
Feel a little pokey stabby.
that's not good.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Don't get shanked.
don't get shanked. It's just a good idea in general.
Good life advice.
Good life advice. And that's kind of just how it ends.
Well, like it's weird because you live through it and then it's like, okay, well we're gonna date now. And then like you get the credits and then afterwards it's like several people were murdered that were in high school. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what?
Things are not resolved.
No, and then like somebody says like, "Oh, it was still drawn to you regardless." It was very very odd, but yeah, you die in that one.
So basically, the next route is Hanako or Ray. Get to date yourself an idol.
My favorite. She was my favorite of all of them.
So her route is fun because like she has to like come to terms with like how she's hiding her double identity and how she like basically reveals that to you and all that sort of stuff. Also in Saya's route, you learned that like her and Saya are like friends with each other. Um, Mostly because Saya's company is like kind of sponsoring her.
Sponsoring her.
Yeah, but they've also become friends like legitimately and all that sort of stuff. But
They both are like, "Oh, you're like my first friend around my age
mhm,
that like I get you." And there was like a bond that I felt immediately when I saw you, which like there's a reason for that, but we talk about that later.
yes. Uh, so Hanako has like obviously she has the Ray side of her and then her other side that is more supposedly kind of like herself, but like it is very two sides of the coin of the same coin. Where the Ray side is obviously the idol. It's very out there. She's very confident, very good at speaking and all that sort of stuff. It has the look and feel of an idol and all that sort of stuff. When she's just like her normal self as Hanako, like she's just like very nervous and timid and shy and just like doesn't know what to do.
It's very dancing all night.
Yes, it is that.
Because that has the same thing that like
Mm-hmm.
what's her name?
Uh,
Kaname
Kaname.
Kaname Kaname
Yeah.
Kanamin. something like that. She has the same thing. She's like, I'm gonna run around in these glasses and sweats and be like a weird, awkward person, which like that's my life. Um, but then when she turns like the idol persona on, she's like a completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much the same trope here.
Which the thing that Ray does to hide herself in when she's out and about normally is that she puts on big spiral glasses, like the very tropey anime glasses, and then just ties her hair up.
Which she does clarify that she can't see unless she has like either contacts or those in or
True.
the glasses. Like it's not just like a disguise. It's legitimately that
Right.
she needs something to be able to see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they are like the goggle glasses with the swirlies, and she braids her hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
but no one's able to tell.
No, and she's constantly like messing up and saying like, "Oh, I've got to go to the shoot," or like, "She would never do that," and they're like, "Oh, huh? What a big fan, huh?"
Yep.
It's like, you guys, you're all idiots, all of you.
They really are.
Big energy.
Yep. But yeah, like you go through her route and she eventually kind of reveals like who she is, and you get to see like kind of that dual facet of herself where you see the parts of her that like are like the idol parts of her, and then the other parts of her that are like just her as the kind of awkward just teenager who hasn't really had that many experiences with friends and everything because she's kind of been working throughout her entire like teenage years, so she hasn't really had to deal with any of this, and she's like, I just want to have a normal life. Oh god.
She's like obsessed with the idea of adolescence.
Yes.
Don't step on the laptop.
Eventually through her route you find out through all the routes you find out like there's like a stalker going after her while she's here in town filming for the movie. Within her route you find out that like it's her actual dad.
Yes.
Who she's had to like get a restraining order after because
he's abusive and
he was
drunk.
Yeah, he was an abusive father who like just would drink all the time and then like
wanted her money.
Yeah, and her mom basically left early on in her childhood, and her dad basically kind of like takes that out on her and all that sort of stuff.
And she knows that she left to go to this town, which is part of why she took the movie role.
Right. She was basically like saved by her manager and like kind of thrust into being an idol just to like get her away from that situation.
Charlotte Tatsumi is her name.
Who speaks English randomly.
Yeah, she just yells in English when she's mad, and it's hilarious. I was like, whoa, I'm not expecting that.
And one of the things that kind of like ties like all of the main characters together is that like they are battling some form of like trauma or something like that.
Yes.
Where Hanako like reveals to the protagonist in her route that like she was like contemplating suicide when she was living with her dad because things were like so rough and she couldn't handle it anymore.
She's like, dudes, or he was like, dude, same.
Yeah. And then eventually, like, you get through your route and you come together, and then he calls her his waifu, and it's just like, oh, why would you ruin this?
That made me so upset because I'm like, this is such a cute and good route, and I love her. And then like he called her waifu, and I'm just like, you've ruined everything.
It's real bad.
Like, why would you ever actually say that to a person ever? And like, there's nothing in her personality or anything that would indicate that she would even want him to say that.
Right.
Like, if it was someone like Futaba, I could see that more.
Yeah.
I would still think it was cringeworthy and hate it, but like, I could see it being relevant to her character. This one, I was just like, why? It's gross.
Yeah.
It's real bad.
So you get to the festival again. She has to perform, obviously, because she's performing in all the festival or all the festival arcs. Yeah. You eventually meet up later, and then you kind of go off into the woods. Bad things happen again. Panda Mask shows up again, and I think this time he's like the Panda Mask like tells Ray like, you're not supposed to be here. We've tried to get you out before. Like, you need to leave this town and all that sort of stuff. You had to like fend off the attacker and all that sort of stuff.
Get hit in the arm with a knife.
Bad things happening.
The hooded guys show up in this one though,
Okay.
and they're
They
like, "Are you guys them? No, you're not them. Everything's okay."
Yeah, they basically like save you and scare off the panda attacker, and then you're just like, what is happening? Because nothing is explained. Um,
Which
which
route is it revealed what their relationship is?
whose?
Saya and Idol. Because it's hinted at both of them. And I think that
Right.
I don't think it's actually like blatantly stated until very late, but like you know that their relationship is this like very
Yeah, it's one of the
early
later
on.
routes. I don't remember exactly which one, but they basically do kind of confirm it, but then don't really go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Spoiler alert, they're sisters.
yes. Um, one thing I will say about this game that like I think is a good positive for it is that as you make your way through each route, they don't really like give you a whole lot of like, oh, here's what's happening, here's what's happening at first. Like
Mm-hmm.
those first three routes are basically like some teases here and there. The third route is like you kind of get a little bit more, and then once you get into like the fourth and fifth route, that's when you start getting like a lot more information toward like to you. And even then, it's like not everything. Um,
That's how Seven Scarlet
well, yeah.
did
Um,
it.
but like that kind of like storytelling is very good for like these types of games and everything because like obviously you want to like figure out what's happening, but like getting like peeling away like here's a layer, here's a layer, here's a layer of story is like it's good. It does a good job of like giving you enough early on and even like later on as well, but without like revealing so much that it's like, well, the later parts are rendered meaningless because you know everything by then.
Right.
Um,
One thing I forgot to tell you, and I was just reminded of it because I said Seven Scarlet again. Um, they also have like a barbecue by the river in Seven Scarlet.
barbecues by the river are very popular.
And it's their research group having this barbecue by the river.
But do they find a bag in the river?
They find a body.
I guess that's a little bit a smidge different.
Smidge different, but like the implications are the same.
Yeah.
It's just really, really funny to me. I'm like, yep. Y'all are going there. Anyway.
So you get to the third route, which is Miami. She's the kind of sort of baby cousin.
Oh, also there's a secret idol in Seven Scarlet as well.
Yes.
It's trying to hide his identity behind being an awkward human being.
The cat boy.
He is the cat boy. He's the best boy. Anyway, continue.
So
Maybe
your next
cousin.
round. What?
Maybe cousin.
Oh, so your next round is Miami, like we said, maybe cousin. Her route is like the first half of it is her like trying to figure out if she wants to date this other dude.
I just realized we made a joke on accident.
Did we? Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
cousin. Arrested
Yeah.
Development.
Yeah.
Yep. Nice. Anyway.
Man.
Whoops.
So like that happens throughout like the first half of her route where she's like trying to figure out if she wants to date this dude and you're just like, yeah, whatever. But why do I feel so different about this?
Yeah, like it's weird because he's like, so you're gonna go hang out with this dude? You gonna do that? Oh, I don't care. And it's like, what are you doing?
Very tsundere.
But then like there's this gal at the hospital who's a tiny gal who wants a kitty cat.
Yeah,
And
and you gotta go help her and cheer her up through as she gets surgery and all that sort of stuff.
that kind of brings them together a bit.
Yeah. Eventually, you learn that she went out with that dude once and then was like, "Nah, I'm good." And you're like, "Oh, okay."
She said he was very pushy,
Yeah.
which ugh.
So they need to become closer.
Yay. Yay. It's everything I ever wanted.
You also learn that she's like hanging out with Mibu. Well, hanging out is like she's there and she kind of looks like she doesn't want to be there, but she has to be there for some reason, and you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on between the two.
Yeah.
So that kind of becomes this weird point of contention as well. Also, you learn that she is the host of the weird spooky radio show,
Yep.
which is not who I was expecting it to be.
It's not who I was expecting it to
Yeah,
be either.
they do a good
Uh,
job of disguising the voice.
they do, but also like it doesn't really make any narrative sense. She's like, "Oh yeah, I needed a job and I did this," and like, oh, okay, like what?
Sometimes you just need a job and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it just I thought there would be a narrative reason and there wasn't.
Well, I mean, like I feel like the entire premise of that show in general is just like, hey, this book was popular, let's do something with it. So
Yeah.
I don't think like I necessarily thought it was going to be like super plot relevant, but
I just thought it would be somebody who actually like cared about this stuff. Like she doesn't ever actually show any interest in like learning anything about the events.
yeah, but also it's a job.
Yeah, I mean, girl, get paid.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Sometimes you get paid to do stuff you're not really interested in. So
Yep. Tell me about it.
so that happens. Um, and then eventually, once you get to the end of her route and you get to the festival stuff and all that sort of stuff, uh, spooky, or does the spooky panda show up here, or is it just hoods? I can't remember. I know something happens, but I don't remember if one thing is like the setup for it or not.
Um, I don't remember, which is bad since I just played it. Like,
I think Panda does show up because okay, so you go to the festival and she doesn't show up, and
mhm.
you and Miyu's the one who finds you and is like, hey, what's up? We're gonna go
She's
watch
over
this
here.
concert. You find out that she like Mibu is taking her, and she comes along with you to like the Kamishiro residence and helps you get in and try and figure out what's happening.
Hmm.
And then she's like, all right, later, I'm out.
This is as far as I go.
Yep. So eventually, like you confront him, and he's just like, oh, I don't know what's happening. But you eventually find her, and she's like, she tells you like he's just being like real weird and like pushy on her and trying to like do some real shady stuff, and she's not having any of it, not interested. Then I think the panda mask shows up, and it's just like real weird. And then the hoods show up
Hmm.
and chase him off, and then they try and like take you down
Yes.
because they think they think there is a Yomibito in the area, and they subdue both of you, and basically are like, no, this isn't the Yomibito.
They get called off.
Mm-hmm. They leave, and then that's it.
Yep.
That is the end of that route. And then you get down into the last two for the true ending. So the penultimate route is Yukino.
Hmm.
And she is, obviously she's a writer and everything. She's basically here to help kind of like figure out or like do a bunch of research on the town and everything. And she kind of like ropes herself into investigating the disappearances and the high school girls getting murdered.
One of them she had interviewed, so she felt an attachment to her.
Yes. So like her route is a lot of like just trying to figure out exactly what's supposedly going on. What is actually happening here? She comes to like find out like the two girls who had been murdered had signed copies of the book from Kaori,
Hmm.
and she gives her that information, and the teacher's like, that sucks, but I didn't kill them, so like I don't know what you want me to do with this.
There's also like some other connections. Like at one point, there's like a big pile of the books burned outside of their house, the mansion per
Yeah.
se, and they find like a gold ring in it. I'm like, huh, that's weird.
The gold ring has the initial M in it.
Hmm.
Also, Yukino gets stabbed in this on that same night.
She gets like a graze, yeah, but
'Cause-
she like pepper sprays the
Yeah.
panda man,
Mhm.
who got into the house, and then like, oh man, is it because you like lost your wallet? The key was in it? Man, that's wild.
Yeah, so the protagonist loses his wallet prior to all of this happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have two options of like go and get it now or go later the next day and get it. If you go and get it now, you get murdered.
Yep.
So you have to wait for the next day and all that sort of stuff. And that's when all of this stuff happens. And then you go to school the next day, and you get your wallet, and everything seems to be in there and all that. Mibu shows up, is like there as well because apparently he's doing stuff, and
He's like on the board or something like
yeah,
that.
and he talks about how Yukino got attacked and everything, and like wishing her well and all this sort of stuff. And
Hitting on her.
yeah, they also like say like, oh, you look real tired. So you're doing okay? He's like, oh, I just haven't been sleeping well and all that sort of stuff. So there's that.
There's also the exchange with the karaoke card.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a karaoke card in your wallet.
Because he doesn't have any like debit cards or credit cards or identification, which is wild that he has no identification. But the teacher found karaoke card in there that identified who he was, and so she's like, "Oh yeah, you're lucky that it was me that found it."
Mm-hmm.
And this was when I like started texting you. I'm like, "This is a thing," and then I threw out my theory, and I was like, "How close am I?" And you're like,
See, like I never went in that direction. I was just like, oh, well, she's probably been to a big city, and she knows that the kid came from a big city, so he has one of these cards. That's how she knows. I didn't go in that direction in the slightest.
I because I heard a different name twice, and then like this
that
happened.
never tripped me up or anything. I was just like, oh, that's the sister's name,
Mm-mm.
because Sora can be a girl's name.
It can.
So
It was
I never thought anything of it.
it was the girl's name in Tokyo Xanadu.
Yeah, so
Um,
never did anything to me. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all right.
yep. Once the name came up twice, and then like she said that, I was like, hmm. But yeah, I usually text you whenever I have like ideas on things, and you try and play coy with me. Um, and so I texted you this picture, and I was like, "This is a thing, isn't it?" And you were just like, "You're on the right track." Which you later told me like you were trying really hard to figure out like how to word it so that I didn't like completely spoil it.
Yeah, because it will come up again
Yep.
later on. So yeah, all that happens. Yugino's been like working with the cop who rolls up around town a lot, and they're trying to figure out what exactly is happening. The cop puts her on like lockdown after she gets attacked. He's like, "You're not going anywhere. We're not gonna let you get attacked again. Like no, this isn't happening." So you missed the festival and all that. But also she has to leave town in a few days, regardless, because she's only here for a little bit. You eventually have a going away party, which everyone shows up to, and
She's
then
like, I'm gonna give a speech.
yes, and this is where you find out who the panda person is.
Yeah, you find out who the panda person is. I think this is also where you find out that they're sisters because she just reveals everything here. She kind of goes nuts.
Yeah, it's like here's your deep reveal of not everything, but a lot of things.
A lot of things. A lot of big questions were answered here.
Mm-hmm. But eventually she points out you basically get a choice of like, okay, here's this list of people, go through them and see who's who, and you can literally go through all of them, and it'll be like, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Why are you doing? No. So literally, it's not like pick one and then that's a game over. It's just like there's like, no, think again. Come on.
Come on, you idiot. You got this.
Eventually, you find out that Mibu is the one who is the panda mask killer.
Who shot?
And then he goes into a rampage and tries to take Yukino hostage. Yeah, but is eventually subdued.
Yep.
And they're like, yay. Saya basically goes away for a bit because she's like, oh, dude, my brother's a serial killer. That's up.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yukino leaves.
Goes on a train.
And that's the end of her route.
Luckily for other reasons, like I was feeling weird about this because he is like a high school boy and she is an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, I really hope there's not like intense dating mechanics here. And there weren't, which made me
No.
feel better about it. Like, you don't blatantly date her like you do the other
Like
girls.
even the rest of the game is like it's not even like super blatant dating mechanics. It's kind of light,
I mean, several routes they smooch.
but that's it.
And like I said, Saya like mounted him at one point, which does not happen here.
Right.
Also, there's like panties and boob groping, so
Which is unfortunate.
it's gross.
Um so that leaves us with Miyu as our last route, which as you progress through the game, each time you go back to restart,
Mm-hmm.
you get a little video that's plays before it, and it's like someone running through some woods or some water and all that sort of stuff. And each time you go through a route, the video gets longer and longer and longer and
And
longer.
clear.
Yes. Once you get to Miyu's route, the video becomes very clear. It shows you a person who is like seeing themselves in a reflection of water, and then her route begins basically at that point.
Yes.
Where you find out that she is one of the hooded people. Her brother's also one of them, and basically the Amana family are Yomobito hunters. Where you learn in her route that the Yomobito legend didn't occur 100 years ago. It has occurred every year since then, and their family has been the one to basically subdue Yomibitos when they show up and make sure no one else in the town is able to know about it or learn about it.
Um, Related. Again, Seven Scarlet does that. They show up every year. Also, they do the same thing with the video at the beginning that like you get more and more information as you keep doing the routes, that the video gets longer and you get more information.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny. I was the one that were like, is this an FMV in
Yeah.
a Tome game?
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
So yeah, her route is a lot of just like her or you trying to get her to open up to you, and she's just like, I'm very stoic and silent.
And also you like stalking her at her house business.
You just go into that cafe a lot.
Oh, it's so creepy.
That's the thing. Eventually, one night, you go out with her, and then you bring her back, and then her brother's like, "See Yomobito? I'll get him." Because I think you basically like stumble into like their basement, which is like
Torture chamber?
it's a torture chamber for Yomobito, and he puts you in like a chokehold, and she's like, "Oh, let him go!" And then that's when like she reveals like the whole thing about her family and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think this is when she reveals that like she thought you were a Yomobito, but now she's unsure because like your aura has changed since the first time you showed up. So now she's very unclear, and also she has this ability to where like she can see people's auras, and that's how she can tell if someone's a Yomobito or not.
Which it's funny that it's actual like explained via gameplay that like as you go through these routes and like hang out with the people, like you get like aura traits.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's like, oh yeah, when you're first year, like you had no aura really, and then like now you have all these bright colors that match these girls that we've been hanging out with. I'm like,
Interesting.
Yep.
Who could have guessed? So yeah, like a lot of Miyu's route is basically, coincides with the Yomobito stuff where she is trying to figure out, okay, I need to find the Yomobito before the end of the festival, because once the festival ends, that's when things are going to go real bad. And if we don't find them before then, like, people are going to die. And it's not going to be good. And she's also, like, worried that, like, her power isn't manifesting strongly enough yet, that she's not going to be able to find them and everything, because it's, like, her first year of having to do this by herself and all that. So she has all that to deal with as well. Eventually, this kind of leads into the same way that like Yukino's route was, where you find you have to confront Mibu. He takes Miyu hostage and like stabs her
Twice
in
or
the chest.
he stabs her once and like twists it basically.
And you're like, oh god, that's bad. And she's like gets up like immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it was very odd.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he got her in the heart.
And this is where you find the reveal of who who is a Yomobito
Yep.
out
And
of the
how
characters
that
you know.
person got to be one.
Yes. So Mibu basically talks about you get to learn that like the ring that was found in his and that was burned with all those books was his.
Mm-hmm.
The ring eventually like initially said M like to M from K or to K from M,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And basically him and Kaori had like been a thing
Since high school.
since high school, and they basically kind of kept it on the hush hush because they didn't want people to know or talk about it and everything.
And they were afraid it would like reflect weird on the
Mhm.
company and all that jazz. And like what's his name? Yamamoto, the
Yeah.
older brother, is like, yeah, nobody knew who she was dating, so like I could never date her, but like I was a bodyguard. Like, all right, weird boy.
So Mibu basically talks about how like their relationship and everything, and then over the past few months, like there was a point where a few months ago they broke up
Yes, in May.
in May, and then essentially he got mad, choked her out, and then dumped her body into a river.
So what happened here is that like he is known as like a womanizer. He has a
Mm-hmm.
really big reputation for that.
Yes.
And she breaks up with him saying like, I know what you've been doing. I don't like it. I want to be the only one that you're with. And she's trying to like essentially call his bluff on it, that he's like, if I break up with you, and then he'll be like, oh, I'm gonna just, it's you all the time. That's what it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he gets real angry and gross and chokes her out and kills her. Which,
Kind of accidentally, I would suppose.
really accidentally choke someone to death.
I mean, technically you can.
This was not an accidental. This was more of a like, if I can't have you, no one can type
I mean,
of
true.
rape. Like, this is an entitled dude who is like,
Yeah.
I get everything I want, and you're trying to get rid of me, and that's not okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that happens, and he's like, "Oh God, this is bad. Things, it's all over." Then she shows back up, and he's like, okay. I
Doesn't
thought
remember him.
I thought this happened," and then she basically to him she just acts like nothing had happened, and he's like he just thinks that she's just acting this way because of what happened.
She wants him completely out of her life.
Yes. But the key thing with Yomibito is that they reveal is they lose memory of them dying, but they also lose memory of someone like very important to them.
Their closest bond.
Yes. So she basically forgets her entire relationship with him and all that. And that's why she acts just like normal and friendly towards him, and why she acts like nothing had happened between them, and that throws him for a loop and everything. And that's how they're able to figure out that she is the Yomibito.
Mm-hmm.
You also find out at the end of Miyu's route, like they're able to come up with a way to get rid of Yomibito without just straight up murdering them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is for them to basically remember that closest bond to them. And once they're able to do that, they're able to kind of like pass on, and
They poof away.
So they're able to like get Kaori to remember her relationship with Mibu. She's able to do that, and kind of talks about like what you said, like why she did the whole breakup thing. She says her piece, and then she poofs away.
Oof.
Also, you learn through Mia's route that like a bunch of people in the town are family members of hers that are just like are basically kind of like in random locations because like they need people in those locations to cover things up when things get bad with the Yomibito stuff. So like Ryoko the cop is also one of her family members.
The hospital lady is one of her family
yes.
members.
And then there's like some dude who works in the Kamashiro Hotel who's one of their family members. Like they have people everywhere in this town.
Mm-hmm.
Which like we were just talking about this, like if you were trying to pull off like an operation of this nature and like keep this weird supernatural thing from seeing the light of day for 100 years, you would need a lot of people and a lot of different locations to be able to to know the right things to do to cover things up.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically have that covered. But that
It still freaks me out because I was like, which you would know. We were talking about this, that you would know it, but I was like, how are they ever gonna like not date your cousin here? Because everybody's related.
I feel like if they are assuming a different identity and everything, they are probably in that hooded group as well.
Yeah, they are.
So they would probably they would at least know each other, or at least if things were like looking towards that direction, someone would come up and be like, "Hey,
y'all,
about that."
maybe don't do that.
let's cut that out.
Um. So yeah, that's a big reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we end up like getting uh Miyu like in the hospital. She's gonna get everything checked out. She
Which
takes a
they
picture.
don't tell anyone exactly what happened. Like the others show up and like have kind of like weird like different stories about what they think happened, but no one tells them that she got stabbed by Mibu and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
They take a picture.
they take a picture of everyone together. Hanako's glasses fall off in the picture, which is funny.
Yep. You get to see main character's face.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he's mostly just like shirts and hands and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
And that's how her route ends.
Well, there is one part post credits that
Mm-hmm.
she says to somebody on the phone, "There's another,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it ends.
And then you go into the true ending, and that begins with Mayumi getting a phone call from her uncle. I guess your uncle as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're on the phone talking about the photo that they took. And she's like, "Wait, what? What do you? What?
It's like at a going away party that this happens.
Yes." And she's just like talking like, "What? What do you mean? What? How's that possible? How? What do you mean they're dead?" And then that they kick into the true ending route from there, which, like you said, like that the phone call takes place a little bit later in the actual route. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the true ending route basically is you going to a going away party for Yukino and Rei,
Mm-hmm.
because they are obviously leaving town because of things. And yeah, it's basically, and I think it's a good way for everyone to kind of get together and everything after all the events have transpired and all that sort of stuff. Saya doesn't show up because things with her brother are weird, and
She's stressed.
she's stressed and kind of feeling awkward
Also,
about
she's
showing
taking
up.
over the company.
Yeah, she's got a lot on her plate. Teacher can't show up obviously because she poofed away.
She's dead.
She's out of the picture. So basically, it's the rest of them that show up, and also it is the going away party is happening during a big rainstorm, so people are showing up at like different intervals because of the storm and everything. So that happens. Eventually, the phone call for Maimi happens. She goes outside and comes back in. It's just like shook.
Mm-hmm.
She is very shook.
She like looks at the main character and is like, "Who are you?"
Yes. And then he's like, wait, what? I'm like, no, who are you? She drops the bombshell that the name that you give the protagonist at the very beginning of the game is not your name.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, And then they cut to an ad break.
It was so weird.
It's funny. So here's where you get the big reveals.
Mm-hmm.
And also here's where you get the character, the protag voiced again, because the protag is voiced at the very beginning of the game in the prologue. Once you name him,
It stops.
it stops being voiced.
Which
But then-
I pointed out, as like, this is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
He still says things. He still has a voice. Why did they not voice him? And
Because he's a different character.
you played it coy. You're like, oh yeah, you know, he just had those few lines, and you know, easy work for the voice actor. It's like, yeah. But yeah, he does become a different character when he becomes whatever you name him.
Yep. So this also plays into the fact that there is a prevailing theory that I had going throughout most of this game, and you also had going through most of this game, that the main protagonist is a Yomibito.
Yep.
And I thought that was going to be the way they were going to go with this game, which I think it would be a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
to go with that, but that ends up not being the case. Um,
Although I got 2 out of 3 guesses right. I was pretty proud of myself.
I mean, that's what Meatloaf says.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
um, so eventually, they keep badgering you to be like, "Who are you?" And you kind of just like don't say anything, and then eventually you begin to talk. Um, you discuss how the name you have been that you give the protagonist is a fake name that you basically kind of came up with just to like get away from everything after the incident with your sister.
Because there was online bullying, and he said that his life was basically ruined because
Yeah.
like anybody could search him and find these things. And
Mm-hmm. Like the main protagonist is basically like he goes to Mihate basically to go die.
yeah, he got a letter, and they say like, "Oh, I guess we can assume it's from the teacher."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he wanted to die.
Mm-hmm. That's why when he shows up and like Miyu tries to look at his aura, like it's nothing's there.
Yeah, because he
Because
was
he's
like on the edge of death.
um so eventually they try and point him out as the Yomibito, and he's like, nope, that's not me. She's the Yomibito.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he points to Yukino, and she's like, huh? What are you talking about? And then he's like, I know who she is, who she really is. I know she shouldn't be here because my name is Sora Otanashi, and Otanashi is the last name of Yukino.
And everyone's like, whoa.
Yep, that's exactly what they say.
Which I called it way early. I was pretty proud of myself.
So, like you said, there's like so the name Sora comes up a few times. Like one of them is in like there's a pencil bag that the protagonist has that has the name Sora like on one of the pencils, and he's very protective of it. And I think it comes up again at another point as well.
There's another point where in the prologue there is a scene where you hear a car accident and you hear a woman say Sora. And I was like, huh, that's weird. And then like when the pen came up, and then especially when the teacher said like, oh, you're lucky that I found it, I was like, his name is not what I gave him. His name is Sora.
So there's a tip that comes up around the same point as well that talks about like the actual protagonist's name, and it refers back to another tip that you get when you get your wallet back and the library and the not the library card, the karaoke card. And it's basically the thing is that the teacher knew your actual name because she sent you the documents to come to Mihate High School and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So she knew who you actually were, and that's how she was able to figure out that karaoke card was yours because she knows your actual name and all that sort of stuff.
Again, nailed it.
When you point the finger at Yukino, she basically like collapses, or she like gets sick and has to go to the bathroom.
She gets really sick.
And then goes to lay down. And then you basically kind of go into like your story of like yeah, the reason my sister died because she got a new car and I basically begged her to drive it, and then she relented and let me drive, and then oh god, we flipped the car and
I'm
she
an
died.
idiot, I can't drive.
And like one of the last things I remember of her was like her necklace dangling, and it's the same necklace that she's wearing now. And when I came to this town initially, like from the very beginning in the prologue, like I was, very tired and everything on the train, and when I woke up I saw her and I thought I was still in a dream state and I didn't think it was real or anything. And
then she showed up at the mansion.
And then she showed up again, and I was like, what is going on? It's interesting because throughout the whole story, like anytime, like when he first starts seeing Yukino, like he keeps mentioning like, oh, my chest is like tightening, and anytime I see her and all that sort of stuff. And near the end of her route as well, like he basically like begs her not to leave. And you could like the way they write it, it makes it seem like, oh well, he has feelings for her, so he doesn't want her to leave the town and everything. But I think it's really well done as well because it's very subtle with like those hints and everything. But like once you go back and like think about it, like, oh, this is why he's actually thinking that, because like it's his sister come back to life and he doesn't want her to leave again and be gone forever.
And his chest hurts because he's like, one, freaking out, but two, like he's missed his sister this whole time and he felt like it was his fault. Now she's right in front of him. So like, yeah, I could see that.
I thought it was like a really subtle and clever way to do that. Like it's very like, I mean, that's very out in the open in terms of like writing it. but it's also good because like without that context you wouldn't completely understand it, but once you get that context it's like it makes it so much clearer.
It does still feel weird that she asked him for a kiss and also offered like sexy photos of herself.
Yes,
Yeah.
I won't deny that.
Which I don't remember if they actually kissed.
I think she asks, she offers it, but I think that's where the route ends. They don't
Okay.
really, they cut it off there.
Okay.
So thankfully it doesn't go that far.
Oof. That'd be weird.
Yeah, so basically
Which
she
he
even
does say, like, when she offers the sexy photo, he's like, I'll pass. I do not want that.
yeah,
So
he doesn't go for any of that.
there's at least that, which is good. It's not like one of those weird, like, sister complex stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a sister complex story, but not like one where he
not
wants to
not
bone
in
it.
that yeah. Like I will give the protagonist something, like he's not the weird creepy pervy character that visual novels can sometimes tend to have.
Yeah, like whenever something happens, he like feels bad about it,
Mm-hmm.
or like somebody's like, "Oh, hey, I'll do this sexy thing for you." He's like, "No, I'm good." Like, mm,
Like you mentioned, like there's a moment where like he inadvertently gropes Mimey,
mm-hmm.
and like he spends like the entire rest of the afternoon like, oh god, I got to apologize. I got to figure out a good way to apologize to her and make her like realize like this was not intentional. I did not mean for this to happen. I'm very sorry for it.
And then remembers that she doesn't hold grudges.
But he even goes through with like going to apologize to her, and she's
Yeah,
just
he
like,
still
yeah,
apologizes.
whatever. And he's like, oh right, she doesn't hold grudges. But like, I was very impressed that he went to like all that trouble to like try and figure out a good way
Apologize.
to like apologize, and like felt very bad about it.
Yeah, it was actually good. And I mean, like the fact that the first day that she shows up and she's like boobs out in his bed, he's like, I will deal with this in the morning, and just like lays against the wall.
I don't want to do anything bad.
Like he didn't even like make any kind of pervy comment or anything. I was like, oh, all right,
Yeah,
cool. He does really like women in their bathing suits, though.
he gets to see a lot of those. So,
Yeah, there's like, oh, hey, we're gonna go to this secret cove that nobody knows about, but we all know
but
about.
all of them know it. So the end of the true ending, Yukino eventually wakes back up, and they kind of go through what had just been told to that Sora tells them and tells her, and
They clarify that like the uncle said that like the person that was in the picture was her and she was dead.
mhm. So they do enough to make her remember like Sora and everything, and get her to pass on peacefully. And they also do a good job of like everyone else kind of comes together, be like to like tell the protagonist of like, you know, she would want you to be happy and everything, and want you to not basically go through life just feeling dreadful and just listless and all that sort of stuff. Like
She would want you to live.
she would want you to continue how you've been going through life this past couple of months, where you've basically kind of turned around, changed your outlook on life and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of comes as like twofold nature of like getting her to remember so she passes on, but also making sure protagonist realizes that like life is still worth living even though she's going to be gone now for good.
Yeah. And I mean, the good thing is that like, hey, don't take that. Oh my God. Um, like they kept talking about how she was like to the point where she was getting close to turning, and that's why she was getting so sick.
Right.
So they were able to avoid that, which would have been very, very tragic. But yeah, she remembers them and everything is okay. Which she does point out, like, oh hey, the article that she wrote that you guys have been talking about. Did you notice that she wrote that in the fall?
Yeah.
So that was the thing.
Weird coincidence. But yeah, they're able to get her to pass on, and everything's fine
Ish.
ish. So everything kind of goes through the rest of it where the protag continues going to school and everything, which also like once the protag gets named and everything, he actually gets character art, so that's kind of like more reason why he's actually like a different character per
Yeah.
se. So all that happens, and then like there's a post credit scene where Miyu mentions how like there could also be another Yomobito out there,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone shows up to become the new teacher. and they describe it in like the character slides, like this is the person that Ryoku, the cop, reported to.
Mm-hmm. But she is also the priest daughter who runs the shrine that's over by the Saya's house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, there is this character mentioned of at least 2 or 3 times. It was like this person left like a decade ago and never came back. They never wrote any letters. They never said anything. They just left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they say like this was the priest's daughter. This was her name. That's the name of the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh.
And
So
basically, they kind of set up maybe doing another game or something.
it feels like they set up a sequel.
Yeah, the Seven Scarlet World End Syndrome crossover game.
There were so many blatant similarities to Seven Scarlet that I mean, I really felt like I was playing the same game.
I mean, usually you kind of get that when like it's the same writer and all that sort of stuff, but usually it's not this direct and sort of like how similar they are.
It's basically like somebody went and copy pasted something and then they went and did like a find and replace for a few words.
Let's change the gender of your datables and just there you go. And
And
the
also
ages.
their age.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like literally you have a club or a group that researches the phenomenon in that one.
Mm-hmm.
All the datables are in it. There is a secret society that hunts the not the dead people who are coming back that murder people. One of the most prominent people in the town is in charge of that. Which like it's a little bit different in this case that like they used to be very very prominent, but also like, yeah. There's a secret idol. Like it's insane how much of it's the same. There's a waterside barbecue.
It's very similar.
It is very very similar. So like it took a bit of the wind out of the sails.
Right. Like, and I think that's like what we were talking about very early on is that coming to this from different perspectives, like we were, like I enjoyed this more because like a lot of this was more fresh to me.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff I hadn't like experienced elsewhere in obviously a game like Seven Scarlet. But for you, like, you know, you've gone through Seven Scarlet, you've played this sort of thing, so like you coming to this, it's like, yeah, this is, yeah, okay, I mean that's the same thing, okay, yeah, all right. It's not necessarily like as new and like exciting as it was the first time through, like when you played Seven Scarlet, which I wonder, like, I would assume maybe it would probably be similar if like someone played this first and then played Seven Scarlet, where the latter would be like, you know, oh, this is the same kind of things here and there. So
Yeah, but Seven Scarlet came first, didn't it?
it did, but I'm saying like if someone played this first and then Seven Scarlet,
Right, right. That makes sense. And I mean, the thing is, like, early on, you asked me to like guess what the plot twist would be.
and you were pretty much
I
like
wasn't. I
super
wasn't
like
far off.
extremely on, but yeah, you were like you had probably like half of it right, I think,
Yeah.
at least. So yeah,
And like I said, I guess 2 out of 3, because I said that it was either the teacher, blue haired girl, which is the sister, or the protagonist that were going to be the Yomibitos. And then I also did called the whole like name thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild.
Which I really like the name thing. Like, I think that's a really good subversion of
That was very clever.
general protagonist nature and visual novels, which I saw someone not like it because it took away like that it was them. And I'm like, that's kind of the point.
That's the point.
But
This is not supposed to be you.
yeah, just like the whole idea that like you have this protagonist who is an actual character and then basically lets you name them to become yourself, and then near the end of the game just rips the floor out from under you. It's like, no, I am this person. I am not you.
Right.
Like, this is who I really am. Like, that was
it.
really, really, really well done.
That was really well done. I appreciated that, honestly. I did name my character the dumb character limit thing was an issue.
Yeah, that's a real big bummer. Is that it's kind of similar to how Persona Q is, where there's a character limit on first and last names. So you have 6 characters per name. So if you have long names, you cannot fit them in there, even though there's like long names in this game.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a bummer.
So I named him a version of Toa's name from Seven Scarlet because he was
Mm-hmm.
the best boy.
Also, I want to make mention that another one of the big things I really enjoyed this game was the background art, which is
Yes.
gorgeous.
It's really, really pretty and it has motion to it.
Like the motion I think is the big thing that kind of sets it apart from like other games in this whole field, where like a lot of visual novels, there's pretty like static images for backgrounds or stuff, maybe like a little bit of flair here and there, but like the way the backgrounds kind of like just like the way they were designed and looked, and the having like that added motion here and there, like it really just made you become more immersed in this world and like make you feel like you're actually there,
Mm-hmm.
which I think really helps the story a lot. And I think as well they do a good job of kind of like capturing that small town feel and vibe, that you get from like actual small towns and so that sort of stuff. Like it's very similar to the ways that like it's gonna be a weird comparison, but like Yakuza 6, I like had had that when they had half of their game in like a small town, and also like I got the same kind of vibes from like Life is Strange,
Mm.
with the way they also like had a small town, and obviously supernatural mysteries and all that sort of stuff, but like it had that same kind of feel that both of those types of games did when it came to like capturing the vibe of a small town, and I think this game does a really good job with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Um, I will say that one thing that really did bother me
Mm-hmm.
is that like everybody except for one character was just like insanely busty.
Yeah.
Like it was excessive.
I feel like that's visual novel tropes. Not to
It's just,
excuse it, but like it's one of those things I just feel like I'm not surprised by at this point.
I mean, there's no medium here. It's just like either
Totally.
huge hammer hammers or like flat chested. There is no like in between.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, guys, give me just like something to work with here. But no, they're like, here, have this giant boob that's the size of his head. I'm like, okay, sure.
Can we talk about the actual best part of this game?
Actual best part.
So for clarification, we played this on the Nintendo Switch.
Uh huh.
And like we said, this game came out also on the PS4. It also came out on the Vita in Japan, but did not transfer over
The Vita
to
save.
US. Yeah. They basically make a faux Vita save interface for like the Switch version. I'm assuming it's the same for the PS4 version, but like it is literally the Vita save interface.
It is.
And I was like, what the
Yeah, you even sent me a picture before I even started playing it. Like, look at this. I was like,
It's-
holy crap.
It's that.
Yeah, that literally that's what it is.
I mean, I know people are calling the Switch the Vita 2.0, but like
That's
that's a little on the nose.
talk about copy paste.
That's hilarious.
It was
That like when I first saw that, I was like, wow,
dang.
it's really good. Well, is there anything else you want to discuss about this game before we wrap up?
Uh, when are you gonna play Seven Scarlet now?
I mean, I've already seen it, so I can
Fair.
just replace everything with dudes, and I'll get the same gist.
Fair.
And everyone has long hands.
Everybody has giant hands. It's wild. I mean, generally, like I liked it, but like I said, it takes a bit of the wind out of the sails when you've
Mhm.
already basically played the game before.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I played it.
Yeah. I was like, I came into this game not knowing anything. I just picked it like it was one of our choices for games to review, and I was like, I'll pick this up, sure. And didn't really have any expectations coming into it, and was pleasantly surprised by the experience and like how much fun I had like unraveling this mystery and everything, and how much I enjoyed like just the way they unfolded it and like presented you with information. That protagonist switch is very good.
That's legit the best part of this game. Like
Yeah.
that is the most well-written part of this game is that protagonist switch.
Mhm.
Really
Um,
well done.
but like you said, like if you've played Seven Scarlet before, like this is kind of not going to be as impressive.
Right.
But if you haven't, like I think this is
It's still good.
it's pretty good. Like it's not like the greatest visual novel ever to come out, but like it's fairly good. Like I'm pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed it.
Also, if you are a dude who is threatened by having to date other dudes, this is your option. Play Seven Scarlet and not have to date dudes. Although the dudes are very, very pretty.
So there you go. Before we wrap up entirely, there is a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, as we were recording this, obviously.
Correct.
There is that supposed leak of an SNK character coming to Smash.
Mm-hmm.
What SNK character do you want in Smash, and why is it Terry Bogard?
I'll say you know the answer to
I know.
this.
Okay, so if it's not Terry Bogard, what SNK character would you want it to be?
Who would you want it to be?
I mean, what about a young whippersnapper by the name of Rock Howard? What about Cushioned Butt? What about just any character from Garo Mark of the Wolves, really?
Oh my god.
I will say, like, I hope it's Terry, because, I mean, obviously Terry's kind of, like, one of the de facto mascots of SNK, and he's kind of been in a lot of different fighting games, like, and I just, Terry's my boy.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not Mai. I'd be real disappointed if it's Mai.
I would be disappointed by that too,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I hope it's Terry.
I do too.
Or someone from Mark of the Wolves. Or just put the entire cast of Mark of the Wolves in Smash. I would be okay with that. Just make Mark of the Wolves playable in Smash. I saw someone make a tweet of like, no, the thing about them putting an SNK character into Smash isn't right. SNK is actually going to make a new Smash game. And like, I would play the hell out of that. That sounds awesome. Like, you kidding me?
I mean, it would be interesting.
Be real good. But yeah, that is the supposed rumor right now. There was also like that rumor like, oh, the next character is going to be a lady, but
Yeah.
and then that kind of blew up with that whole Overwatch case getting leaked, and then everyone's like, it's going to be Tracer from Overwatch, and I'm mad. And now everyone's mad about SNK, and they're like, what's an SNK? And it's like,
Ouch, my age.
And also Smash fans getting mad about SNK characters, and it's just like, God,
Smash fans get mad about everything.
you can't please them.
Literally everything. Like, no wonder he tried to like work himself to death. Is like nobody's ever happy.
Yeah.
It's very, very frustrating.
But yeah,
I didn't even know there was a whole rumor about Tracer being the character.
it was like some like message board post that like the next character is going to be a lady, and then there was an Overwatch case that got leaked, that got put on Amazon for Switch, and then people thought like there's going to be an Overwatch for Switch announcement like coming soon, which that could happen, who knows.
Yeah.
And then people were putting two and two together and thinking, oh well, that's the next character is going to be Tracer, which but give me my boy Terry Bogard. I want to see him punch Mario in the face and ask him if he's okay, and then yell Buster Wolf.
Are you okay? Buster Wolf.
I want Terry Bogard to punch the following people into the face: Mario, Yoshi,
Uh-huh. I mean,
Luigi.
tax fraud.
Yes,
Luigi.
Cloud Strife,
Okay.
Joker,
Okay.
Solid Snake,
Uh-huh.
basically every character in Smash.
Okay. Is there anyone you want to spare?
Bayonetta.
Okay.
Terry Bogard and Bayonetta are gonna team up and hang out.
They'd be bros.
They would.
He's really the only option though. Like I really hope that it's him.
Give me Terry. Give me my boy. I'm gonna put my Fatal Fury hat on.
Terry just needs to be in more games, honestly. That's just
honestly,
really
you're not wrong.
what it boils down to. Put Terry, I can't even talk anymore. Put him in more games.
Also, of course, there is other stuff that's going to be announced there. Nintendo's talking about like their 2019. That's what they're focusing on for that direct. I would like to invite all of you. Obviously, this is going up afterwards, but in case this doesn't happen, or if in case it does, please join us in our Tokyo Mirage Sessions Switchport prayer circle.
Mm-hmm.
Grab your copy of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, just place it in front of you, and just hope to the high heavens, hope to wherever things go, that Tokyo Mirage Sessions gets announced for Switch.
It needs to happen.
Atlas.
You cowards.
Atlas, you cowards. So yeah, that's okay. That's our episode.
We're done.
I'll probably edit this and be like, man, Terry, you could have been, or they'll just not announce anything. I'll just be like, all right, well, that's the thing.
I mean, that's the risk of us talking about things before announcements.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Anyways, if you'd like more from us, go to seasonalanicheckup.com or sac.cool. It's where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Seasonal Anime Checkup and Jared Net Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. And you can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. It's where you can get this podcast days earlier and unedited, because I don't edit it until after. You get to hear all them cursing.
Yay.
And times where we like cut out things that are like long pauses, or the cats attack Al.
Sometimes
stuff like that
stays in. Maxwell eating cords.
That too. Next week we'll talk about, I don't know, something.
Who knows at this point?
It'll be something.
Yep.